Hi friends, welcome back to my studio. I'm Katie and today we are celebrating my 1 year anniversary of fountain pens. So in mid-April of last year, I was, going around the YouTubes looking for planner content and stumbled across my now friend Karina Loves to Plan's YouTube channel. She had recently gotten into fountain pens. She was using them in her planners, and I had come across her because I was interested in the planner she was filming about, and picked up a fountain pen obsession on the side. So a year ago, pretty much today, I bought my first fountain pen, which was the Pilot Kakuno. It's a great pen. I still use it regularly. If you're looking to buy your first fountain pen, this is the one I highly recommend that you start with. And about a year ago today, it was delivered. And then other things happened, So to celebrate my 1 year anniversary, I'm going to do kind of a retrospective of the last year in terms of the fountain pens, the nibs, and the inks, mostly in combination, that I just can't quit. The ones that I come back to time and time again. So essentially a favorites, like a year-long favorites. A lot of these things, I ink them and use them up. They go back in a drawer for a week or two, and then I ink them in something very similar immediately after that brief cooling down period. So we'll talk a little bit about my collection and my inking strategies as well. And let's just get into it. So pretty much all of the pens I want to talk about today are currently inked, mostly because they are nearly always currently inked. My collection is small enough that a large percentage of my pens are inked at any given time. Not 100%, probably somewhere between 50 and 75%, and most of them get inked every month, just swapped in and out. I don't do a currently inked the way that some people do, where they set out at the beginning of the month with their set pens and inks and they use those for the whole month. I tend to ink my cartridge converter pens about halfway full. Those usually last me about 2 weeks, and then I swap in and out. So there is still kind of a month-long feeling to things, but it's not a prescriptive list for the whole month. I like to have the freedom to change it out based on how I'm feeling, and I like to match my fountain pen inks to the stickers in my journal. So I like to have that flexibility. So usually I am washing out 2 to 3 pens a week. 2 maybe, just kind of on a constant cycle. So anyhow, let's pull out my scrap paper. This is an outdated take a note planner. It's got 68 GSM Tomoe River paper in it, and let's talk about the ones that I can't quit. So in terms of the first pen that I bought that really felt like it was dictating what it wanted to be filled with, where I don't vary super wide what gets inked, is this Venu Euphoria Armenian pomegranate wine. I have an unboxing video and a description of how I change out the nibs to YOLO style nibs. This one is technically a TWSBI, but that's in the video too. This came with a broad nib. That was all that was left when I decided to buy it. And I'm not a broad nib kind of girl, although the broad nib is amazing. This was the first pen that I really encountered that feeling of I want to put a red ink in this. I only really want to put a red ink in this, or, you know, warm ink at least. I have put gold in it as well. But this was the first one where it really, like, I felt that the pen was telling me what it wanted to be inked with. So I do change what kinds of inks, and I'll show you some examples from my journal too. But the like go-to, the one I can't quit is Diamine Oxblood. This nib maybe doesn't show off the shading as well as some nibs. I do swap the nibs in and out some, but I love, that's coming out pretty dark, but I love the dark red. It's like, I think you might notice, I like some pretty bright colors, but my favorite colors tend to be these like slightly desaturated kinds of colors. So Diamine Oxblood is a favorite. Let's show some things from my journal just to like show a little variety, you know. So, you know, here it is to match these stickers. I really love that, but I have swapped out the nib and the ink. So that's the thing it's most likely to be inked with, but there is here, this was that pen inked with a Sailor, the Sailor 473, which I really enjoyed. So I was looking for something springier, but still nice and warm. And so I went with this kind of coral color, and this is a different nib that we will talk about shortly. I don't usually have it in this pen, but I do like it in this pen. So that's the first one of like things I just can't stay away from. Next, let's see. Okay, next was this custom turned pen from Just Turnings. I also have a video about this one. This was the pen I had commissioned to satisfy my urge for a Pelikan white tortoise pen, which is like just too small, too pistony for me, but I loved the color combination, and so this really scratches that itch. It's a gorgeous pen. This was my first hand-turned pen, and maybe kind of my intro to the Yovo number 6 nibs, which are now like the linchpin of what I use, but it's swapped out for a Pen Realm Reverse Architect medium nib. So this is the nib I was just showing you that I had in the Benu, but usually it lives in this pen. It doesn't have to, they're interchangeable. I do swap them, but I really love this nib in this pen, and I love doing desaturated dark greens in it. So this is the Just Turnings pen with the Pen Realm Reverse Architect medium. And so it's this medium architect on the reverse. It's a needle point forward. I don't use the needle point a ton, but it's helpful to have it. I love this nib. It's just an absolute delight to write with. I am planning on doing a video on all of my esoteric nibs, but non-standard nibs, but that's not this one. But I love this, and I love to ink this pen with a desaturated green. This particular one right now is Troublemaker Sea Glass, which I'm enjoying a lot. I have in my journal right now. There. But my actual favorite, but I don't have any more of this ink and I need to repurchase it, is, when did I write with it last, is a Birmingham Pen Company. Here it is. This is pitted nickel. So it's pretty similar to sea glass. It's just a little bluer and a little wetter. And I like them both a lot. I don't know that I need both of them long term in my life, but I haven't picked which one I'm going to go forward with. But this is a set of combinations I just I can't stop. Let's see. Next, let's talk about this pen. Again, I have a video unboxing it. This is the Sailor Pro Color. It's got this steel fine nib. I don't have a specific ink that I love using this with, so this is just a pen that's regularly inked, but no nib swaps, no particular ink. I do find the body a little small. I tend to, in general with my pens, I tend to be kind of a nib hugger up here at the front. I do try to consciously hold this one a little further back because it's more comfortable here. I don't love this pen for long writing sessions, but for a page in my journal, it's totally fine. But I find this to be an extremely enjoyable pen to write with. Right now it's inked with Iroshizuku Asagao, but that's not prescriptive. I just really like to have this one inked. It makes a really precise, fine line, which I enjoy. I like the feedback on it, and also I regularly have this inked for my 5-year journal because I started my 5-year journal before I was into fountain pens by 2 months, and so it's not on fountain pen friendly paper, and the fineness of this nib often means that I can write on it without a problem and not have it bleed through. So that is a big reason why this one is often inked, although it does trade off with the Kakuno fine and extra fine. Those are all kinds of in a collaborative effort together, but the Pro Color is my personal favorite. I think I like the kind of feedback, but I love them all, and they're fairly inexpensive. So that's one that I just can't stop. This one is regularly inked. This is my vintage Wall 10-point pen. It's a tiny little pen. It's got a fairly, but not super flexy nib. And I don't ink this with anything interesting for the most part. It's just black. This is a Sailor standard black. It came in some cartridges that I took apart. But it's just a beautiful pen. It writes really nicely for this kind of calligraphy style. And I used to fill it with color, but it's not that easy to switch inks and clean out lever fillers. So in light of some other things I've kind of made my peace with this one staying mostly black, or maybe another neutral I'll swap in and out. But I really like this pen, and I use it in headings a fair amount. I like to have it just ready for a heading when I want it. So that's definitely one that never ventures too far. This guy, I love this guy. So I fell in love with Pastel Primary Manipulation from Jonathan Brooks, Carolina Pengo, blanks, after they were already known to be discontinued. And so it became my white whale to get one, and it took a while and it took some fast fingers, but I did manage to get one, and I really love it. This one is from F3 Pens, and I was just over the moon. This was my first purchase of 2023. It's just a lovely pen, and honestly, I don't know that I've had a Grail pen since I got this one. This was my Grail pen. I wanted something in this resin that looked like this, and I am just currently so satisfied with it. It's really beautiful. The nib that I tend to have in this was a Secret Santa gift. This is the Jowo Omniflex nib, which in rose gold, some people really are disappointed with. It's not a super flexy nib, but it is soft, and I've decided that's a thing I really enjoy, especially because I love shading and chromo shading inks, and this nib, I've heard it might have some quality control problems. Mine is lovely. I really enjoy using it, and it puts down a good amount of ink, and so it does the shading and chroma shading well. So I don't have a specific ink that I like. I mean, I do have some favorites. The one that's in here right now is the Sailor Manyo Yamabuki. And so this nib is a little soft. I can get some line variation, although key to getting line variation for it is to be extremely light when you can. And so then if you do extremely light and then you push, you can get some good line variation. I'm not huge, but noticeable. If you tend to have a heavy hand, you might lose the thin parts and it might all look the same. So how much you like this nib could vary for you, but I do find that it shows off shading really well, and even in just you know, I can be a little calligraphic about it, but if I just am doing regular writing, I still get a little bit of line variation, but more notably like some lay down of ink, which I really like. So let's find some writing samples for you. So this is it with that Yamabuki. So, you know, the light yellows, mid yellows going to orange. The ink I truly love in this is like purples. So let's find where I became obsessed with Troublemaker Foxglove here. So hopefully you can see how it's like showing off the shading of the purple and the dark blue. It just like, it looks really good. And I've heard that this ink can be not that much fun if you're using it in a dry pen, but I've never tried it. This ink became one of my favorites because of how well it works in this pen. I also love some of the Sailor inks. Let me find it. Yeah, so this is Sailor Manyo Neko Nyagi, and again, it really shows off the shading really beautifully between the purple and the pink. So I'm a huge fan of that as a color combination. I think in terms of the things I've had long enough to really have a strong opinion about, so that's most of them. Let's do some kind of honorable mentions. These are combinations that are more recent for me, so you know, they haven't really stood the test of time, but I think seem really promising. So I bought this pen with a double broad metallic nib on it, which I have moved elsewhere, and I've swapped it in with just a Jowo Extra Fine. This one, as you can see, came with my F3 pens. I just move them all around. I love to buy pens that all take compatible nibs, and I just swap them to my heart's content. The double broad is really fun and I like it, but this is a piston pen, and I'm not a piston kind of person. I just don't like to fill that much ink, and I don't like dealing with it. I just would rather use a converter. That might be an unpopular opinion. This nib doesn't match. I don't care. It doesn't stop me. But when I thought about what ink I might want at higher volume, I have a thing for these gray purples. There we go. So this is the Birmingham Dewberry, and this is my go-to. Well, this kind of color. The Dewberry is new to me. I'm just testing it, although I really like it, and it is one of their everlasting inks, which I think is neat. But this kind of color is my go-to neutral color. So in my journal, or in my planner, there are things that I just want to write in the same color, you know, the whole time. Like, so I have at the front like a list of all the books I've read and all the fountain pens I've bought, and I want to have this be the same over the whole 6 months of this planner. So this kind of color is my go-to color. And so I kind of like having something always inked in that go-to neutral. And so I'm testing doing that in this pen, which is fun because it is purple, and also I'm more happy to just ink it up and leave it be for months at a time, which is unusual for me, but I do like it. Other honorable mention are these Jinhao 82s. They're a Sailor knockoff, but I kind of love them. I do wish they had the Sailor nib, but they're, you know, like $3, so who's complaining? I bought a whole bunch of them and swapped out the colors of the finials. This is my personal favorite combination. I call it my watermelon pen, and it's just really lovely, and I have it inked up with Birmingham Marigold, which is just like a great match. And like, so while I feel like I could ink this pen with other things, and I'm sure I will at some point, it's just hard. It's hard not to. Although I could see myself, you know, when this one gets finished, I could see myself inking Birmingham Marigold in this Banu as well, if I were looking to take this Banu in a springier direction. I love this pen, but it feels a little winter and fall. And right now I'm feeling very springy. So I love this pen. I take it to work. That's usually where it is. And then I don't feel bad about the fact that it's only a couple dollars. I don't have to worry about it. And it just makes work a little better. So those are my honorable mentions. Let's talk about a couple things I didn't discuss and just kind of why that isn't a knock against them. This is my Esterbrook Esty sea glass. I posted a video where I like inked it with a custom ink. I put too much glitter in that ink, and so it's been a little challenging to use. I find it to be really enjoyable to hold, and I think I will enjoy inking it in these kinds of colors, but I just haven't had it long enough to have it rank as one of my like true go-tos. I kind of expect it will become one, but it hasn't yet, and I just want to be honest about it. It's not a knock against the Esty, it's just I haven't had it that long. My Vanishing Point I love, and I do have it inked pretty regularly, but I don't really have any like kind of go-to feelings about it, so it didn't really make this list. If you're curious, I do have a second one that I've decided to sell, so if that interests you, contact me on Instagram. It's a little bit used, but it's in great shape and it's a great pen. Just a little plug, and I think that's really most of the things I want to talk about. I want to talk about the nib on this pen, but I also want to hold it off for a different video. Here's a teaser. This is definitely an honorable mention. I haven't had it long enough, but I'm in love with it. This is a vintage Waterman 100-year nib in a Yovo number 6 housing, and it is an absolute delight. I'll have to do a nib video where I can just talk about this. I don't have a favorite pen for it. I don't have a favorite ink for it, but it is definitely a favorite. Oh, so good. I wish you could feel it. It's just absolutely delightful. So anyways, I think I've probably blabbered on long enough, but thank you for celebrating my 1-year fountain pen anniversary with me. Thank you to this community for being just truly delightful to be a part of. I love interacting with you all. I love being in the subreddit. I love being on Instagram. It's just a delight. So thanks for being a welcoming community. Thanks for having me for the last year. Cheers to another year. If you enjoyed this video, hit the thumbs up button. If you'd like to see more from me, hit the subscribe button, and we'll talk again soon. Bye, friends.